global economy isn't random. It's not fully man-made either. Nations seem to arrange themselves in a pattern, and the pattern seems to repeat century after century. For 500 years, nations have been divided essentially into three groups: core nations that set the rules, periphery nations that supply resources and labor, and semi-periphery nations caught in between. And there's an in-depth article on this today at culturalperspective.com and how it affects our lives. So, in the 1500s, Spain and Portugal were the core powers. The Americas, Africa, and Asia were periphery nations plundered by the core. The semi periphery was the Ottoman Empire, Mughal India, and China. They were not fully colonized, but they lost influence over time. In the 1800s, Britain led the core nations with industrialization, followed by France, Germany, and later the US and Japan. The periphery nations in Latin America, Africa, and South Asia supplied raw materials to the core nations. The semi periphery nations, like Russia and the Austrian Hungarian Empire, were partially industrialized but politically unstable. So, fast forward to 1945, and the US emerges as the core leader. Much of Africa, Asia, and Latin America remained periphery nations supplying resources. They were politically free but economically dependent. The Soviet Union and its satellite states became the semi periphery nations. And now the core is moving again. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and five other nations are creating a new core. The West will continue to be a core as well, and nations such as Turkey, Mexico, South Korea, Vietnam will be the new semi periphery nations. These countries will gain strategic importance as BRICS and the West compete for influence. Periphery nations will continue to supply resources, but they lack industrialization and remain economically dependent on the core. And these nations include the DRC, Nigeria, Ghana, Mali, Burkina Faso, Kenya, Ethiopia, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, the Philippines, and almost all of South and Central America. And just like historic colonies and the Cold War era, these countries will be fought over indirectly through infrastructure, debt, and digital systems. And it will impact the price of food, gas, and technology, and the jobs available to you, even the value of your paycheck. And with the Trump Republican regime putting an end to global power, the shift is happening sooner than later. So, what do you think? Which bloc will create more opportunity for ordinary people, BRICS or the West?